Hello, my fellow Homo sapiens, and welcome back to the Nerd Rant. Today I will be talking about the 1997 film Anastasia, which is about, according to IMDb, the last surviving child of the Russian royal family joins two con men to reunite her with her grandmother, the Dowager Empress, while the undead Rasputin seeks her death. This is one of a few videos I plan to do because I quite frankly have a lot to say about this film. So for this video, I will be specifically talking about the opening scene, or what I will be referring to as the background info scene, and how it ties into the main plot and makes the movie work as a whole work. But before I pretty much describe the first 5 minutes as detailed as I can, I have to give out a spoiler warning, and I suggest that if you are able to, watch the movie first, because it'll give better context, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to understand the video either way. You can stream it on Disney Plus or rent it on YouTube. And also, one more thing, new icon! I designed it myself! I'm proud of it. I didn't draw it, of course, but yeah, I'm proud of it. And yes, that is me in there. It's me with my Plague Doctor mask. But anyway, let's get into it. This movie opens with a close-up shot of the music box playing an instrumental version of Once Upon a December, with figurines of the king and queen dancing inside it. The music box is so crucial to the plot, so it being the first thing we see is important. Also, having the king and queen dancing around in it is good too, because it sets up Anastasia's relationship with her family. Then as the camera zooms out, we see the grandmother pick it up before getting into a carriage to go to this ball. If you want to learn more about what event the ball was based on, and also the historical influences of the costumes in the movie, like just in the movie in general, but also in this particular scene, I suggest that you check out Mina Lee's video about the historical accuracies and our inspirations of the costumes. The link will be down in the description. It's a fantastic video. Then once the carriage takes off, she starts narrating about how there was once a time where kings and queens ruled the world, and so on and so on. This narration, along with the visuals, tells us where and when the story takes place, who the characters are, and the characters' relationship to one another. Then we cut to a wide shot of the ballroom, seeing people dancing as the music swells. We then see Anastasia dancing with her parents before running off to greet her grandmother. This is important because it shows how loved and happy her life was at this time and just how much she lost. Then the grandma reveals the music box to her as a gift, and as Anastasia is talking to her grandmother, the camera pans to show the space behind them, and we see a young Dmitri watching the grandmother giving Anastasia the music box before someone comes and drags him back to the kitchen. Then we cut back to Anastasia and her grandmother, and the music box playing their song Once Upon a December, and them singing it, showing how important that song is to their relationship, which I will go more in depth in my video about the music in the movie once that is made, because I haven't even written it yet. I'll put that once I have that video made and it's uploaded. I'll put the link down in the description, but I don't have it up right now. Here is where we learn that they had planned on living in Paris together. We don't know when or for how long, but we do know how excited Anastasia is to hear that information. But then we go back to that wide shot of the ballroom. Now all of its warm gold hue is darkened. The music swells, but this time it sounds threatening. And right in the middle of all this, we see people who were once dancing stepping back to form a path for a ghostly-looking figure, all while the grandmother is narrating, "But we would never be together in Paris." It's such a chilling transition, and it's very effective. Then here Rasputin is introduced as the villain, and that he killed the whole royal family that night with a curse, which he sold his soul to get. Also, I want to mention, the animation for when he is selling his soul is amazing and so creepy, but I love it. It's fantastically animated. Then we cut to a scene of people fleeing the palace. Anastasia runs back to get her music box, but her grandmother tries to stop her. Like, dude, your life's in danger. It's a music box, but it's actually quite important. A little side note, I really appreciate that the dollhouse has Russian architecture. It's just a nice little detail. It's nice. And she is able to get it, but they hear people trying to break into her room. Then the servant boy, Dmitri, helps them escape through a secret passageway, and Anastasia drops her music box. They all get away besides Dmitri, who is then knocked out by whoever was storming the palace, and he falls unconscious right next to the music box. We don't really ever know who is storming the palace, but oh well. Anyway, then we cut to Anastasia and her grandmother running away, and Rasputin tries to stop them, but falls through a patch of ice and dies. He doesn't stay dead. Anyway, that's later in the movie. Then they run to a train station, but Anastasia isn't able to get on and falls on the train tracks. Then in the final shot, this is what we see and hear.
And my Anastasia, my beloved grandchild, I never saw her again.
Now that you know the material I will be referring to, let's go over why this scene and having it happen at the beginning is so crucial to the plot. So I think one of the most relevant but simplest plot devices to talk about here is the introduction of Rasputin, his hatred of the royal family, and that he sold his soul to kill them. Rasputin's hatred incites all the events in the story. It doesn't, drive all of the plot because there are other factors that drive other parts of the plot, but it does make the whole thing happen. And I also say that because for most of the movie, most of the characters that have the most screen time know nothing about Rasputin's curse. But the curse does give the plot ball a little push to help it start rolling. But other than that, there is not much to talk about because we don't know why he hates them or anything. But that's not a huge issue of mine because this part of the plot isn't what interests me the most, if I'm being honest. Next on our little quickfire round is seeing Anastasia with family other than her grandma. It's not the most relevant to the plot as a whole, but it is important to know that she did have a family that loved her. And also us knowing about the amazing family she lost while she can't remember them is a very sad, sort of dramatic irony. And yes, it is dramatic irony. I double-checked while proofreading and editing the script. And that resumes our quickfire round. Now we move on to the music box. I see the music box as a physical representation of Anastasia's and her grandmother's relationship, which is a huge plot point. And honestly, besides that, there's not much to mention here in this section. We need to know about the music box so that we know about the lullaby, which helps us understand their relationship better, which I will talk more about why that is when I talk about the music in Anastasia. And we need to know about this stuff because it's one of the main focuses of the plot. But we can't really talk about the music box without talking about Anya's necklace. Her necklace is the only clue she has to her past. It helps her reach her main motivation, which is finding her family. Then when her necklace and the music box are finally able to be reunited when Anya and her grandmother are able to sing their song together again. And I don't know how else to talk about this stuff without talking about other characters and their development, so I'm going to move on to our next section. Now we are clearly talking about our main characters. Well, Rasputin is a main character, but since he's the antagonist, I put him in a different category. But anyway, I finally get to rant about how Dmitri pretty much ties this whole thing together, and I'm excited. I love Dmitri's character. Yeah, more of the great characters. They're awesome. So the first time we see Dmitri is when he's sneaking off to watch the ball before getting dragged back to the kitchen, presumably where he works. He also has an apple, which I'm gonna guess that he stole, which of course tells us that he's not exactly a trustworthy person at first glance. But then when he saves Anastasia and her grandmother, he is revealed to be a trustworthy person. And that scene is also important because it tells us how they escape the palace and how Dmitri has a music box. Which is really sad when you think about it, because the grandma has literally nothing to remember Anastasia by. But besides that one photo we see later in the movie. But even if Anastasia hadn't dropped it before they escaped, who knows if she would have given it to her grandma or not. So there's a lot of factors it depends upon, I guess. Anyway, back to Dmitri. But knowing all this helps us understand the personal and emotional turmoil he's having when Anya was asked how she escaped the palace, and that she actually answered that question correctly, even though he had not told her. And no one besides Anastasia, her grandmother, and Dmitri would have known what had happened. And it helps us understand why he didn't take the money. Besides the fact, of course, that he's in love with Anya. But knowing that also feels like some closure for him, knowing that the people he saved are safe years later. It also explains how he has the music box. Besides the possibility of him finding it when he was living in the abandoned palace. But that's not as important to the plot unless we use it as a metaphor, which of course we will be doing. Because what else do I have to do? Not much. Oh, great, my puppy. Give me a sec. Do you want to come in? Are you going to be a good girl? Violet. Okay, lay down. You can stay in here while editing. No, not your toy. Thank you. Okay. I've already mentioned how the music box is a metaphor for Anastasia and her grandmother's relationship. Shortly after Anastasia loses her music box, she also loses her grandmother, which is both foreshadowing and a metaphor. Wait, does foreshadowing count if it happens a minute later? I don't care, I'm going to count it because, yeah. Then years later, after Anya has grown up, she still has the necklace. Dmitri still has the music box, and the grandma still has hope that Anastasia is still alive somewhere. And eventually they are all brought together through the music box, and also the necklace, in a way. It's almost like this music box has some sort of power to bring people together, to form deep relationships with each other, but I don't know, maybe I'm looking into this too much. What I'm saying is that the music box is practically Cupid, but for different types of love. That was a joke, by the way. But it is, if we think about it that way. But I was just kidding. Anyway, let's get back on track. This movie would not have worked without that background info scene. And yeah, we could have had it at another point in the movie, but the emotional factor would not have been as great if it or small parts of it were changed. And I'm going to give an example of this because it would make more sense. Let's say that a version of the opening scene happened when Anya was getting asked how she escaped the palace, and she was about to answer it. So imagine she gets asked how she escaped that night. The camera pans to Anya looking puzzled, and as she's about to speak, her face fades out and the music swells. We cut to that wide view of the ballroom, people laughing and dancing. Then we zoom down to Anastasia dancing with her family. Then we cut back to that wide shot as the music starts to darken along with the light in the room. We see a ghostly figure walking through the crowd, people talking in hushed whispers, worried and unsure of what's happening. Then Rasputin gives his small speech practically telling the royal family how he planned to kill them. We don't get that scene of him actually selling his soul, because this is supposed to be Anya's retelling of what happened, and it just wouldn't make sense to have that in there. After that, chaos erupts. We cut to that hallway scene, people are running and screaming. And instead of seeing the camera focus on the grandma, it would focus on Anastasia and her realization that she left her music box behind and her running back to grab it. Her grandma trying to tell her to leave it. Then, of course, we would see Dmitri helping them escape, but we wouldn't know who Dmitri was, because Anastasia had no idea who he was at the time. And we don't get that lingering shot on Dmitri in the music box. Instead, we go back to the present, where Anya is getting congratulated for answering all the questions correctly. And worst of all, in my opinion, we wouldn't have time, nor would it make any sense, to have that moment of focus on Dmitri and his internal conflict about his feelings towards Anya, while knowing that she's really the princess. And as someone who really values fleshed out characters and character development, it would be a really sad loss. Also, seeing the male lead struggle with his emotions towards another person, especially in a story that has this traditional, princess fairy tale setup, is very important. Anyway, and to smoothly move on to another point of what I'm trying to say, while still relating to character development, the background info scene also helps flesh out Anastasia's and her grandmother's relationship. The scenes later in the movie of an older Anya and grandma bonding over old forgotten things would not be as impactful if we instead saw a quick montage of young Anastasia and her grandma dancing together with the music box. I will, of course, go into this more when I talk about the music. Hi-bye. And if we didn't have that first scene, we would know next to nothing about the grandma character. All that we would know is that she is looking for her granddaughter, Anastasia. We wouldn't know that she gave Anastasia the music box. How she has a special place for Anastasia in her heart. And we wouldn't be able to fully understand why finding Anastasia is so important to her. Just how much it hurts her to be ripped off by money-hungry people ever since she's lost her, in her words, beloved granddaughter. In short, this background info scene at the beginning of the movie does everything it needs to set up the story, world, and characters in the movie successfully. It's truly a masterpiece in my opinion. I will also quickly say that while it was not originally a Disney film, because I think it was a Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers did not belong to Disney at the time, if I'm correct. Because I would know if it was a movie made during the Disney Renaissance. Y'all know that I would know that. Anyway, it was made towards the end of the Disney Renaissance, and follows an extremely similar formula to other Disney movies at the time, which I find very interesting. And not just in the plot line, but also in the music, which when I go over the music gives me an excuse to rant about Howard Ashman! Hooray! But anyway, that's where I'm going to end this video. I still have a lot to say about this movie, and will be making more videos and uploading them at some point. I don't know when. Hopefully I'll finish at least one of the other scripts by the time this video goes up. I have no clue though. Anyway, if you like this video, give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. I've got to go edit now. That would be fun. Goodbye.